Hello, I'm reading from Autobiography of a Yogi. I'm starting at the top of page 441. Chapter 41, An Idol in South India. You are the first Westerner, Dick, ever to enter that shrine. Many others have tried in vain. At my words, Mr. Wright looked startled, then pleased. He had just left the beautiful Chamundi temple in the hills overlooking Mysore in southern India. We had bowed before the gold and silver altars of the goddess Chamundi, patron deity of the Mysore ruling family. As a souvenir of the unique honor, Mr. Wright said, carefully wrapping a few rose petals, I will always preserve these petals, blessed by the priest with rose water. My companion and I were spending the month of November 35 as guests of the state of Mysore. The Maharaja's heir, H.H., the Yuvaraja Sri Kanteriva Narasimharaja Wadiyar, had invited my secretary and me to visit his enlightened and progressive realm. There's an asterisk and a cross there. It says, Miss Bletch had remained behind with my relatives in Calcutta. During the past fortnight, I had addressed thousands of citizens and students in Mysore city at the town hall, the Maharaja's College, the University Medical School, and 3 mass meetings in Bangalore on the National High School, the Intermediate College, and the Chetty Town Hall, in which 3,000 persons had assembled. Whether the eager listeners had been able to credit the glowing picture I drew of America, I know not, but the applause had always been loudest when I spoke of mutual benefits that were to be derived from the exchange of the best features of East and West. Mr. Wright and I were now relaxing in the tropical peace. His travel diary contains the following account of his impressions of Mysore. Many rapturous moments have been spent in gazing upon, almost absent-mindedly, at the ever-changing canvas of God stretched across the firmament, for His touch alone is able to produce colors that vibrate with the freshness of life. That youth of colors is lost when man tries to imitate with mere pigments, for the Lord resorts to a more simple and effective medium, neither oils nor pigments, but mere rays of light. He tosses a splash of light here and reflects red, and it reflects red. He waves the brush again and the color blends gradually into orange and gold. Then, with a piercing thrust, he stabs the clouds with a streak of purple that leaves a ringlet or fringe of red oozing out of the wound, and so on and on. He plays night and morning alike, ever changing, ever new, ever fresh, no duplicates, no patterns or colors, just the same. The beauty of the change in India from day to night and from night to day is beyond compare elsewhere. Often the sky looks as if God has taken all the colors of his kit and had given them one mighty kaleidoscope toss into the heavens. I must relate the splendor of a twilight visit to the huge Krishnaraja Sagar Dam, 12 miles outside Mysore city. Yoganandaji and I boarded a small bus, and with a small boy whose official cranker or battery substitute started over a smooth dirt road just as the sun was setting, squashing on the horizon like an overripe tomato. Our journey led past the ever-present square rice fields, through a grove of comforting banya trees, in between towering coconut palms. Nearly everywhere vegetation was as thick as a jungle. Approaching the crest of a hill, we beheld an immense artificial lake, reflecting the stars, and a fringe of palms and other trees, surrounded by lovely terraced houses, gardens, and rows of electric lights. Below the blink of the dam we saw a dazzling spectacle, colored beams playing on geyser-like fountains that resembled outpourings of brilliant inks, gorgeous blue, red, green, and yellow waterfalls, and majestic stone elephants sprouting water. The dam, whose lighted fountains reminded me of those at the 1933 World's Fair in Chicago, is modernly outstanding in this ancient land of paddy fields and simple people. The Indians had given us such a loving welcome that I fear it will take more than my strength to bring Yoganandaji back to America. Another rare privilege, my first elephant ride. Yesterday the Yuvaraja invited us to his summer palace to enjoy a ride on one of his elephants, an enormous beast. I mounted a ladder provided to climb aloft to the howdah or saddle, which is silk cushioned and box-like, and then for a rolling, tossing, heaving, and swaying down into a gully. Too much thrilled to worry or exclaim, but hanging on for dear life. Southern India, rich with historical and archaeological remains, is a land of definite yet indefinable charm. At the north of Mysore is Hyderabad, a picturesque plateau cut by the mighty Godavari River. Broad fertile plains, the lovely Nilgiris or Blue Mountains, and other areas with barren hills of limestone or granite. Hyderabad history is a long, colorful story starting 3,000 years ago under the Andhara kings and continuing under Hindu dynasties until AD 1294, when the region passed into a line of Muslim rulers. The most breathtaking display of architecture, sculpture, and painting in all India is found in Hyderabad in the ancient rock-sculpted caves of Ellora and Ajanta. The Kail-Asa at Ellora, a huge monolithic temple, possesses carved figures of gods, men, and beasts in the stupendous proportions of a Michelangelo. Ajanta is the site of 25 monasteries and 5 cathedrals, all rock excavations supported by tremendous frescoed pillars on which artists and sculptors have immortalized their genius. Hyderabad city is graced by Osmania University and by the imposing Mecca Masjid Mosque, in which 10,000 Muslims assemble for prayer. Mysore State, 3,000 feet above sea level, abounds in dense tropical forests, the home of wild elephants, bison, bears, panthers, and tigers. The two chief cities, Bangalore and Mysore, are clean and attractive, with many beautiful parks and public gardens. Hindu architecture and sculpture achieved their highest perfection in Mysore under the patronage of Hindu kings from the 11th to the 15th century. The Temple of Belur, an 11th century masterpiece, is completed during the reign of King Vishnuvardhana, is unsurpassed in the world for delicacy of detail and exuberant imagery. The rock edicts found in northern Mysore date from the 3rd century BC. They illuminate the memory of King Asoka, whose vast empire included India, Afghanistan, and Balochistan. Inscribed in various dialects, Asoka's sermons in stone bear witness to the widespread literacy of his day. Rock Edict 13 denounces wars. Consider nothing as true conquest save that of religion. Rock Edict 10 declares that a king's true glory depends on the moral progress he aids his people in attaining. Rock 11 defines the true gift to be not goods, but good, the spreading of truth. On Rock Edict 6, the beloved emperor invites his servants to confer with him on public business at any hour of the day or night, adding that by faithful discharge of his kingly duties he was thus obtaining his own release from the debt he owed to his fellow men. Asaka was a grandson of the formidable Chandragupta Maurya, who destroyed the garrisons left in India by Alexander the Great, and who in 305 BC defeated the invaded Macedonian army of Seleucus. Chandragupta then received at his court in Pataliputra the Greek ambassador Megasthenes, who has left us descriptions of the happy and enterprising India of his day. In 298 BC, the victorious Chandragupta handed over the reins of India's government to his son. Traveling to South India, Chandragupta spent the last 12 years of his life as a penniless ascetic, seeking self-realization in a rocky cave in Saravanabelagola, now a Mysore shrine. The same region boasts the world's largest statue, carved out of an immense boulder by the Jains in AD 983 to honor the sage Gamateswara. Interesting stories have been minutely recorded by Greek historians and others who accompanied or followed after Alexander in his expedition to India. The narratives of Iranian, Diodorus, Plutarch, and Strabo, the geographer, have been translated by Dr. J.W. McCrindle to throw a shaft of light on ancient India. The most admirable feature of Alexander's unsuccessful invasion was the deep interest he displayed in Hindu philosophy and in the yogis and the holy men whom he encountered from time to time and whose society he eagerly sought. Shortly after the Western warrior arrived in Taxila in northern India, he sent Onesicritus, a disciple of the Hellenic school of Diogenes, to fetch a great sannyasi of Taxilia, Dandamas. Hail to thee, O teacher of Brahmins, Onesicritus said after seeking out Dandamas in his forest retreat. The son of the mighty god Zeus, being Alexander, who is the sovereign lord of all men, asks you to go to him. If you comply, you will be rewarded with great gifts. If you refuse, he will cut off your head. The yogi received calmly this fairly compulsive invitation and did not so much as lift his head up from his couch of leaves. I also am a son of Zeus, if Alexander is such, he commented. I want nothing that is Alexander's, for I am content with what I have, while I see that he wanders with his men over sea and land for no advantage, and is never coming to an end of his wanderings. Go and tell Alexander the Great, the supreme king, is never the author of insolent wrong, but is the creator of light, of peace, of life, of water, of the body, of man, and of souls. He receives all men when death sets them free, being then in no way subject to evil disease. He alone is the God of my homage, who abhors slaughter and instigates no wars. Alexander is no god, since he must taste of death, continued the sage in quiet scorn. How can such as he be the world's master when he has not yet seated himself on a throne of inner universal dominion? Neither as yet has he entered living into Hades, nor does he even know the course of the sun over the vast regions of this earth. Most nations have not so much as heard his name. After this chastisement, surely the most caustic ever sent to assault the ears of the Lord of the world, the sage added ironically, if Alexander's present domains be not capacious enough for his desires, let him cross the Ganges. There he will find a country able to sustain all of his men. The gifts Alexander promises are useless to me, Dandamis went on. The things I prize and find of real worth are trees, such as my shelter, blooming plants which provide my daily food and water and assuages the thirst. Possessions amassed with anxious thoughts are wont to prove ruinous to those who gather them, causing only the sorrow and vexation that afflict all unenlightened men. As for me, I lie upon forest leaves, and having nothing to guard, close my eyes in tranquil slumber, whereas had I anything of worldly value, that burden would banish sleep. The earth supplies me with everything I need, even as a mother provides her child with milk. I go wherever I please, unencumbered by material cares. Should Alexander cut off my head, he cannot also destroy my soul. My head, then silent, and my body, like a torn garment, will remain on the earth, from which their elements were taken. I then, becoming spirit, shall ascend to God. He enclosed us all in flesh and put us on earth to prove whether when here below we shall live obedient to his ordinances, and he will require of us when we depart hence an account of our lives. He is the judge of all wrongdoing. The groans of the oppressed ordain the punishment of the oppressor. Let Alexander terrify with threats men who wish for wealth and who dread death. Against the Brahmins his weapons are powerless. We neither love gold nor fear death. Go then and tell Alexander this. Dandamis has no need of aught that is yours, and therefore will not go to you. If you want anything from Dandamis, come you to him. One Sikoritos duly conveyed the message. Alexander listened with close attention and felt a stronger desire than ever to see Dandamis, who, though old and naked, was the only antagonist in whom the conqueror of many nations had met more than his match. Alexander invited to Taxila a number of Brahmin ascetics noted for their skill in answering philosophical questions with pithy wisdom. An account of the verbal skirmish is given by Plutarch. Alexander himself framed all the questions. Which be the more numerous, the living or the dead? The living, for the dead are not. Which breeds the larger animals, the sea or the land? The land, for the sea is only part of the land. Which is the cleverest of all beasts? That one with which man has not yet acquainted. Man fears the unknown. Which existed first, the day or the night? The day was first by one day. This reply caused Alexander to betray surprise, and the Brahmin added, impossible questions require impossible answers. How best may a man make himself beloved? A man will be beloved if, possessed with the great power, he still does not make himself feared. How may a man become a god? By doing that which is impossible for a man to do. Which is stronger, life or death? Life, because it bears so many evils. Alexander succeeded in taking out of India as his teacher a true yogi. This man was Kalyana, Swami Spheres, Spines, called Kalanos by the Greeks. The sage accompanied Alexander to Persia. On a stated day at Susa in Persia, Kalanos gave up his aged body by entering a funeral pyre in view of the whole Macedonian army. The historians recorded the astonishment of the soldiers as they observed that the yogi had no fear of pain or death. He never once moved from his position as he was consumed by the flames. Before leaving for his cremation, Kalanos had embraced many of his close companions, but had refrained from bidding farewell to Alexander, to whom the Hindu sage had merely remarked, "I shall see you later in Babylon." Alexander left Persia a year later and died in Babylon. The prophecy had been the Guru's way of saying that he would be present with Alexander in life and death. The Greek historians have left us many vivid and inspiring pictures of Indian society. Hindu law, Aryan tells us, protects the people and ordains that no one among them shall under any circumstances be a slave, but that enjoying freedom themselves they shall respect the equal right to do it that all men possess. The Indians, states another text, neither put out money at usury nor know how to borrow. It is contrary to established practice for the Indians to do or to suffer a wrong. Therefore they neither make contracts nor require securities. Healing, we are told, was by simple and natural means. Cures are effected rather by regulating diet than by the use of medicines. The remedies most esteemed are ointments and plasters. All others are considered to be a great measure pernicious. Engagement in war was restricted to the Kshatriyas or warrior caste, nor would an enemy coming upon a husbandman at work on his lands do him any harm, for men of this class were regarded as public benefactors and are protected from injury. The land thus remaining unravaged and producing heavy crops supplies the inhabitants with the requisites to make life enjoyable. The ubiquitous religious shrines of Mysore are a constant reminder of many great saints of South India. One of these masters, Yogi.wmv, has left us the following challenging poem. You may control a mad elephant. You may shut the mouth of the bear and the tiger. Ride the lion and play with the cobras. By alchemy you may earn your livelihood. You may wander through the universe incognito, make vassals of the gods, be ever youthful. You may walk on water and live in fire, but control the mind is better and more difficult. In the beautiful and fertile state of Travancore in the extreme south of India, where traffic is conveyed over rivers and canals, the Maharaja assumes every year a hereditary obligation to expiate the sin incurred by wars and the annexation in the distant past of several petty states to Travancore. For 56 days annually, the Maharaja visits the temple thrice a day to hear Vedic hymns and recitations. The expiation ceremony begins with the Lakshadipam, or illumination of the temple by 100,000 lights. Madras Presidency on the southeast coast of India contains the flat, spacious, sea-grit city of Madras and Kanjivaram, the Golden City, capital site of the Pallava dynasty. whose kings ruled during the early centuries of the Christian era. In modern Madras presidency, the nonviolent ideals of Mahatma Gandhi have made great headway. The distinguishing Ganji caps are seen everywhere. In the South, generally, the Mahatma has effected many important temple reforms for untouchables as well as caste system reforms. The origin of the caste system formulated by the great legislator Manu was admirable. He saw clearly that men are distinguished by natural evolution into four great classes: those capable of offering service to society through their bodily labor, Sudras; those who serve through mentally skill, agricultural, trade, commerce, business life in general, Vyasayas, those whose talents are administrative, executive, and protective, rulers and warriors, Kashantras, and those of contemplative nature, spiritually inspired and inspiring, Brahmans. Neither birth, nor sacraments, nor study, nor ancestry can decide whether a person is twice born, i.e. a Brahmin. The Mahabharata declares, character and conduct only can decide. Manu instructed society to show respect to its members insofar as they possess wisdom, virtue, age, kinship, or lastly wealth. Riches in Vedic India were always despised if they were hoarded or unavailable for charitable purposes. Ungenerous men of great wealth were assigned a low rank in society. And there's a long footnote there. Serious evils arose when the caste system became hardened through the centuries into a hereditary halter. India, self-governing since 1947, is making slow but sure progress in restoring the ancient values of caste based solely on natural qualification and not on birth. Every nation on earth has its own distinctive misery-producing karma to deal with and honorably remove. India, with her versatile and invulnerable spirit, is proving herself equal to the task of caste reformation. So entrancing is southern India that Mr. Wright and I yearned to prolong our idyll, but time, in its immemorial rudeness, dealt us no courteous extensions. I was scheduled soon to address the concluding session of the Indian Philosophical Congress in Calcutta University. At the end of the visit in Mysore, I enjoyed a talk with Sir C.V. Raman, President of the Indian Academy of Sciences. This brilliant Hindu physicist was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1930 for the Raman effect, his important discovery into the diffusion of light. Waving a reluctant farewell to a crowd of Madras students and friends, Mr. Wright and I set out on our travels. On the way we stopped before a little shrine sacred to the memory of Sadasiva Brahmana, in whose 18th century life story miracles clustered thickly. A large Sadasiva shrine in Nerur, erected by the Raja of Padukati, is a pilgrimage spot that has witnessed many divine healings. The successive rulers of Padukati have treasured as sacred the religious instructions that Sadasiva wrote in 1750 for the guidance of the reigning prince. Okay, that's almost at the bottom on page 452. That's it for today. Thank you. Bye.